We're just gonna sit here for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, good.
Wait, okay, so now I have the raise hand feature. I guess that's good. I don't
That's
know.
good. Yeah, I'm gonna make you a co-host, so then you won't. But
Okay. But you can say yes and no. That's interesting. I wonder what that's for. That's weird. I don't know. Hi, Danielle.
Hi. I forgot I was muted. How's it going?
good.
It's good. My roommate just got a monstera. It's very pretty. It's in the window over there. I don't know if you can see.
That's
Oh, here's the chat. Okay.
Oh, it's already recording us?
Yeah.
Cool. I feel like that's useful to just stop it.
Oh, nice.
Can you make it be small?
Okay. Oh, that's weird. It's still like cut off on the sides.
I'm working on it.
Oh, okay.
I think.
It's pretty good.
That do it?
Yeah.
That looks good.
I can't see it, so it doesn't show it to me.
It looks beautiful.
Okay.
Liz, I'm renaming you to Liz Cornish Bikemore.
Cool. Are you good, Judd? Do you need anything else?
I don't think so. I think I'm good.
Cool.
I don't get to do this from my kitchen because Wynn's down there to be on the webinar too and pad our stats. So.
Oh, nice.
That's funny.
Yeah, I guess we can just sit here for a little bit until people show up.
So Danielle, should I stop recording and then start again, or we can just cut all of this?
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Cool.
We probably won't need
Do
to
anything with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna stay on our Facebook page after, and I would just use that for anything probably, but
yeah,
you might as well have a recording of it. That's what I would think. Oh yeah, people are still registering. Great job. Gorgeous Pete.
the council hearing went pretty well. Everyone's very scared.
What was it for again?
25 miles of slow streets.
Okay.
And since everyone got excited about it and everyone voted for it, I think it'll end up meaning maybe they'll even move it on special.
That's exciting.
On Monday, so it could do second and third reader and maybe be implemented right away, which would be crazy. Then DOT would have 2 weeks to do it all, and they're not ready for that at all. So it'll be wild times.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what happens when they don't take it seriously for that long.
Yeah. Do you think that they're gonna change any of just their strategy around doing that, because now people aren't, the stay-at-home orders lifted, or?
I mean, I think that if anything, maybe it makes it more
Yeah.
necessary to do because like people are gonna go out and be places where they probably shouldn't be because the order shouldn't have been lifted.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I went to like I was in the car with my roommate and we drove by Patterson Park and it was packed with people and no one was wearing masks and it was actually just like I'd entered a new city where no one cared about anything because I just haven't witnessed that around Mount Vernon as much. But yeah, it was interesting, kind of infuriating.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We're just going to wait a few minutes to allow folks to join the chat. My name is Liz Cornish, and I'm the Executive Director of Bikemore, and I'll be moderating this conversation with Brandon. So what we can do in the interim is we want to make sure that we have time to field all of your questions. So feel free to post questions in the chat. You can send them to everyone on the channel, or you can send them to myself, Liz Cornish, or Jed Weeks, who's also in the chat, if you feel more comfortable sending the question privately. But we'll make sure that we'll try to get to everyone's questions. You'll also have the opportunity to ask Brandon your question directly, and we'll be helping to moderate so that folks will get unmuted at the appropriate time. So in the interim, thank you so much for joining us. Looks like we have a really great turnout, and we're just going to wait a few more minutes before we get started. Unfortunately, I don't have really great hold music to play for you, but thank you so much for joining us, and we will get started in just a few moments. Looks like we have a few more folks joining us. So I just want to make sure that everybody has heard the instructions. So my name is Liz. I'm the Executive Director of Bikemore, and I'll be moderating this evening's discussion. What you can do in the interim while we're giving folks a few more minutes to sign on is you can type questions for Brandon in the chat. We're going to have plenty of time for questions that you can ask directly to Brandon. If you'd prefer to type your question privately, feel free to select Liz Cornish or Jed Weeks in the to section, that little blue button that you can highlight. And then we'll make sure to call on you if you'd like to ask your question directly, or we can ask the question for you, whichever you feel most comfortable with. Great to see some familiar faces. Hi, Steve Howard. Hi, Greg. We're at 7:06, so I think it's time to get started. So if folks have just joined us, my name is Liz Cornish, and I'm the Executive Director of Bikemore. And I want to thank you all for taking time out of your evening. I know there's so much to do right now with our evenings. And so thank you for being with us to learn more about Council President Brandon Scott, and his running for mayor. So this year was the first time that Bikemore really dug in and made sweeping endorsements in this year's election. So in 2016, we got a lot of feedback from our first I Bike, I Vote campaign. And what we heard from folks is that they wanted more direct advocacy, they wanted more clear political positions. And so that is when we began our 501c4, which is called Bikemore in Action. So essentially, the boring part is we operate under 2 different tax designations, and our C4 allows us to engage in more political activity, like endorsing candidates, but it also allows us to have a registered lobbyist. So Jed Weeks is our registered lobbyist, and it allows him to help draft legislation, work directly with lawmakers to make sure that your position that you want to take to make Baltimore a safer place to walk, bike, and take transit, those ideas and those policies get advanced. On our 501c3, which really is the bulk of our work, that's where we do all of our community engagement. So, you know, I hope that some of you have had the chance to meet Menelik. He was hired in the fall to begin, you know, doing more programs out in the community. We're going to have to get creative in the interim, but Menelik has already hosted some great online programming, and there will be a lot more in the future. So make sure that you're signed up for Bikemore emails and social media so that you can get a heads up. Everything from bike maintenance to tips for riding in the time of COVID. To be fully transparent, Brandon's running a little behind. Anybody that's worked on a political campaign or attended a political event knows that often candidates are scheduling things back to back. So he had another meet and greet right before this, and so he's going to do his best to be here as soon as possible. What I want to make sure that you know about is on our website, if you head over to bikemore.net, along the top of the page is a banner. That where you can go directly to our I Bike, I Vote page. We have candidate questionnaires from a ton of candidates in each race. We had a wonderful response. So it allows you to see all of the candidates' responses to our questionnaire if you're still undecided, but also just want to hear how folks are, where they are on the issues. And it has our endorsements as well, and we go into a little more detail about specifically why we endorsed Brandon Scott for mayor. So it's a really exciting time for us as an organization that we were able to be part of this year's local election in a new and different and exciting way, but also a risky way. But I know even now that the door has not shut for us to still do really great things with the current administration. Just today, there was a hearing to move forward a bill to create more open streets in the city. So if you've had a chance to ride around Lake Montebello lately and seen the streets slowed down and closed off, creating a ton of space for people to walk, bike around the lake, which is beautiful right now. That is part of the program. And so we're hoping as this bill advances, it's going to create at least 1 mile of slow streets in each council district. So each part of the city will get to participate in the program. And it's just going to allow residents to have places to walk and bike, to exercise, to recreate, because not everyone can access our parks. And we want to make sure that our parks don't become too crowded so that folks can remain physically distanced from one another. All right, so I'm going to close my video just for a moment so that I can deal with some logistics, but I'll be right back. And if in the meantime, if you have any questions for me and Bikemore C4, feel free to put them in the chat because I can definitely spend some time answering those in the short term. Okay. So one of the questions that ended up in the chat that I thought was really interesting was Kathy said it would be fun to learn why folks were on the call and some of your interest in the meeting while we wait. So a lot of folks have the raise hand feature located on the bottom of the screen. And so if you would like to introduce yourself to the group and maybe state some of the things that you hope to learn this evening, I think that'll be a great way to make sure that we can just hear from one another, learn a little bit more about our community, and make sure that we get to cover the things that are most important to you during right now. So, and then Jed's on the video as well, and he's going to help me navigate some of this tech in terms of seeing raise hands. So don't be shy and feel free to share who you are, maybe what neighborhood you live in, and something that you're looking forward to learning this evening.
Hey, Steve, you want to go?
Hi, I'm Steve Howard. I live in Bolton Hill. I've been a casual cyclist for many years, but not really an enthusiastic cyclist, and started really cycling during COVID because I can't swim. And I saw the opportunity to deliver food through Real Food Farms and Bikemore. And I've done it twice, well, once on bike and once in a car. And I think it's a fantastic opportunity, and I want to get more involved.
Cool. Thank you, Steve. Kathy, I think your hand is raised too, if you want to go.
Okay, I guess I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, I've been fortunate to meet Danielle Parnes. I think you're here somewhere, Danielle, and maybe some other folks. So I am the team director for a pilot program we started last fall, which is a mountain bike team for girls, middle school girls in the Patterson Park area. And we've used the park and other areas around Baltimore City, as well as Loch Raven, the mountain bike trails there, which are actually owned by the city. And so my interest is in expanding youth mountain biking or any kind of biking for kids in the Baltimore City schools. So first focusing on middle school girls.
Cool. Thanks, Kathy. Alex Holt, looks like you've got your hand up. I'll unmute you here.
Hi, my name is Alex Holt. I don't actually do a lot of biking myself, but I do. I use a lot of transit, and I don't really drive. So I've become very keenly aware of the ways that those worlds sort of intersect, and how Bikemore, the work Bikemore does in both. You know, I do a lot of transit writing for Greater Washington. In fact, I'm actually in the process of putting together a quick article on the bill that just got heard today in the Transportation Committee. You know, which sounds absolutely fascinating and exciting. And I'm just sort of looking forward to hearing more about sort of how things like that come together, and just sort of what ideas, you know, Brendan has for transportation going forward. It's certainly been a big thing that's attracted me to his campaign, is his willingness to, I think, consider doing things differently on that front, which is something the city really needs.
Cool. Thanks, Alex.
Again, apologies. We're still waiting on Brandon. Things happen when you're running a campaign, and he had back-to-back events. So he'll be joining us shortly. In the meantime, one of the questions that showed up in the chat, Jed, was about open streets or slow streets, and thinking about how the streets will be selected. And maybe just share what has sort of happened in the bill so far and what hasn't been decided so far, because this is a question that a lot of people have in terms of, we're out more, we're riding and walking, and where it's going to be safe to do so with more space.
Looks like Council President Scott just joined us, actually, so we can we can save that one for him, and I can help out with that. So,
sorry everybody,
Great.
Sorry about that. Hey.
Well, welcome, Brandon. It's so good to see you.
Thank you for having me. It's good to see everybody. Brian Sweeney, what's up, sir? I miss you.
Great. So we're going to get started so that Brandon has plenty of time to share about him and his campaign, and that we save time for a question and answers. So again, if you haven't just joined, my name is Liz Cornish. I'm Executive Director of Bikemore. Very excited to be joined from all of you from the Bikemore community and beyond, and I'm very excited to introduce Brandon. So as you know, Brandon is running for mayor. Bikemore has endorsed Brandon. We really thought it was important in this upcoming election to have a leader that really sees the whole picture. Transportation isn't something that falls behind things in a queue, but is a root cause issue to some of Baltimore's biggest challenges. And so Brandon has consistently, through his legislative record and through his leadership, really began looking at Baltimore's issues from that lens, through an equity lens, through addressing root causes. And it's really exciting to know that there's somebody running for mayor that has new ideas, has a perspective of a lot of his work that he's done nationally as a cohort of young elected officials throughout the country. And he was born and raised in Baltimore. So he has a wonderful perspective of where the city has been and where it can go. So I'm gonna let you take it away, Brandon.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Bikemore. First and foremost, thank you, as always, for your advocacy and pushing us to do the right thing.
Brandon, I think we're having a little difficulty with your audio. Yeah, it's not great, but it's better.
That's weird.
All right, that's great. That's better.
That's better? Are we good now?
Yeah, you're perfect.
All right, great. So I'll start over. So I'll say thank you. Thank you. First, that was, listen, that was Comcast throttling me. I've been on Zoom too much today. I'll start off by first saying that thank you to Bikemore, not only for your endorsement, but more importantly, for your leadership in pushing Baltimore to be a 21st century and thinking about things differently. Also to everyone on the Zoom and everyone watching live on Facebook, please know that I hope that you and your families are safe and well during this COVID-19 pandemic, and hope that you know that you and all of you all are in my thoughts. I am Brandon Scott, your current City Council President. For those who may not know me, a lifelong Baltimorean. And Liz, I'll be brief because I think the question and answer is the best portion of these. I don't like to give these long drawn out speeches. And I'm a son of Baltimore City who is running to be your next mayor. I, again, believe that this is the most important election in the history of Baltimore City, because it's not just about who the next mayor will be, but what kind of mayor they will be, what they will stand for, and what they're willing to do to put Baltimore on a better path. And for me, as someone who grew up in what I like to call the forgotten Baltimore, growing up in Park Heights, where I saw my first shooting before my 10th birthday, where I went to schools with no heat and air, lost friends, seen people severely addicted to drugs, was experiencing under or over policing, never something in the middle. That changes you and makes you make a decision early in life. Are you going to accept that that's how life has to be? Or are you going to do something and dedicate yourself to changing it? I clearly chose the opposite and have spent my entire life serving the city of Baltimore, trying to make it better. And for lack of a better term, raging against the machine from the inside, trying to push Baltimore to understand that we have to deal with gun violence as a comprehensive public health issue because it's something that's been ravaging the city my entire life. Understanding that no, one person is not going to save this city, and one person surely just plugged into this outdated structure of city government that we have is not going to save this city. That's one of the things that separates me from the candidates in this race, that I want to build a new structure, that we aren't just going to operate a city government that's a $3 billion entity with the same structure in 2020 as we had in 1974, that we're going to change that, even if that means that I, the next mayor of the city, is going to have a little less power. That's the kind of leadership that I want to bring to Baltimore so that we can tackle the tough issues, understanding that we are the birthplace of housing redlining via legislation and have created some of the most deep inequities that can be seen in the country and in the world. And we have to attack that. That's why I passed the equity assessment program. That's why I supported the Complete Streets legislation championed by my dear friend Ryan Dorsey, because Baltimore can and must do better as we move forward into the next generation. That's what this race is about, making the change and having the leadership that can convene the entire city together, not someone that can just divide the city by race or by age or by economic status, someone that can get into every corner of the city, have their voice be heard and respected, and also make sure that they can listen to those people as we convene Baltimore to be one city together for a new way forward. Thank you.
Brandon, thank you so much. Every time I hear about your time here in Baltimore and your vision for the future, I just get really excited. We need a lot of hope and we need a lot of positivity right now. It's a crazy time, and it's a crazy time to run for office. So
yeah, we're doing this on Zoom, right? Like, I'm a people person. The hardest part about this for me is that, like, I haven't been able to go to the rec center. Like, I got all these young high schoolers talking trash to me about how they can beat me in basketball now, only because they know they can send me a direct message and I can't just show up to beat them. Like, this is driving me nuts.
Well, we do what we can do. And so thank you again. And thank you to everybody that's joined us. Just a reminder, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. If you would like to put your questions there privately, you can message them directly to myself or Jed Weeks, and we'll make sure you get that. And if you're on Facebook, Danielle is watching the Facebook comments as well. So hopefully we'll get a time to answer anyone's questions. I'm going to hand it over to Jed. He's going to moderate your questions.
Oh, that's why Jed has on the headphone.
Yep. So I'll start with some questions from the chat, give people some time to raise their hands. So the first one was from Steve, and he said, what are the criteria for streets that could be reduced or closed during COVID? And are there specific factors that include or exclude specific streets? I think your bill talks a little bit about that. So
yeah, we just had this bill today, and actually I have not been able to talk to Councilman Dorsey to see if it was amended at all. So listen, this is what we want. We know that cities across the country and what they've been doing, right? We've seen it. We know that COVID has changed the world. And we know in Baltimore in particular, it's going to be 80 degrees this weekend. So we know what in certain neighborhoods, that means people are going to be forced out of their houses because they don't have air conditioning and they can't stay healthy in a situation like that. What we're trying to do with this legislation is simply join everyone else, creating opportunities that don't necessarily mean a DOT has to come and shut a street down, but that we can work with community partners and others to provide space for people to be outside, practice physical distancing, and do that in a way that keeps us all safe and healthy, right? And for larger streets, clearly it looks different. For example, thinking about the parks, right? We can do more than what has been done in the park. We know we have a street that runs literally through the middle of Patterson Park. Would it hurt us if that street was closed until this was over? Not really. It wouldn't. We can do those things. When you think about how Green Spring runs through the top of Drew Hill Park, Would it hurt us if that was closed? No, it wouldn't. It would create an environment that allows for us to be more involved in our streets, more involved in our citizens, in our neighborhoods, and do it in a safe way, creating opportunities for us to bike, for us to walk, for us to run if you're people like me. And that's what we have to do. And we know the department apparently doesn't support this piece of legislation, but we're going to push it forward in the council again because it's the right thing. It might not be the popular one with people in city government, but it's the right thing to do for the city.
Mr. Council President, happy to report. Well, first, thank you for being on the beginning of that Zoom call for the hearing and stressing the importance of this legislation. I think that helped a lot, and it did get voted out of committee unanimously without amendment. So it's very, very good to hear. This next question is from Laurel, and she lives in Able Charles Village. And she says she used to ride a lot, but not as much in the last few years, and is excited to hear more about your plans for transit and complete streets.
Yeah, let me just be very clear and succinct here. We're actually going to implement complete streets under my leadership, right? I know, I like to ride my bike. That's one of the things I do with my family on the weekends, right? And I want to do that in a safe way. But also, we're going to do it in a way, as Liz talked about too, that is very culturally sensitive and done through a lens of equity. We have to have a Department of Transportation that understands the culture of neighborhoods and what has happened in the city. Like if you live in a neighborhood where you've been asking, Jed, I'm not picking on you, for a stop sign for 20 years and you've never gotten it, right? And then all of a sudden a bike lane shows up. You're like, hey, what's going on here, right? Like we have to do the tough work of rebuilding those relationships and saying, yes, we can provide these basic things for you, but we also have to think about reimagining our city. When you look around the country, when you look around the globe, you can see cities that are growing are pushing these kind of things, not because we just want to say, oh, well, forget about everyone else except for people that are pedestrians and bikers, but no, that we can build things that are shared spaces, that we can build a better infrastructure in the city. And even thinking about some of the big things that I think that we can do, including implementing the law and doing that through an equity lens and making sure that they're working with communities and meeting with them where they are and having them involved in those decisions. We also, Jay, can do some big things, right? Reimagining the highway to nowhere, the poster child for inequity in America, in my opinion. What if we did something very interesting there? Well, we changed that to something like they have in some other places to be like a busway where only buses could go down and places or high occupancy vehicles or even buses, bikes, and pedestrians, or even down in the future, figuring out like we could do a quick rail thing that goes from there down to Lexington Market. Like how transformative would that be for that neighborhood? Same thing for 83, reimagining it, making it something that is for high occupancy bus and other vehicles to make the transportation more friendly to the actual city and not just people who are trying to come in and out.
Great, thanks. I think this next question from Dave, I think you probably answered it. Dave, please message me if you didn't, but I did want to highlight that he mentioned that he's moving to the city this month, and he's a county resident that's moving back into the city. So I think that's a really, really exciting thing. So I wanted to give him a little shout out on that. But yeah, Dave, if that didn't answer your question, let me know. This next one's from Shaka Pitts. I know Shaka wants to ask a question on video too, but I'm going to read this one out for you. As Baltimore continues to change for the better, what are you going to do to ensure that Baltimoreans of color are not priced out of their homes? Around the country, there's a rent crisis, and you can watch it in real time in the Bromo Arts District, where Lexington Market is currently being renovated. Rent has already increased in excess of $50, and utilities are no longer fully covered in some buildings that were once great affordable housing opportunities. Rent for some buildings are starting at a rate where only a certain type of person can afford to live where they once were able to.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for that question, Shaka. This is something that means a lot to me. I actually went to college with a city council person from Washington, D.C. And what I tell Robert White when I talk to him, I say, well, two things. One, we're going to have a renaissance like DC, but we're also going to do it in a way we just don't push everyone out, right? This is about leadership and having the courage to do it. And what we have to do, this is why I have the companion to my equity assessment program in the equity fund, because I believe we should be absolutely directly investing in people who live in those neighborhoods where we know redevelopment is coming, but who have been ignored for generations, and turning them, not just making sure that we're investing in affordable housing trust fund and looking at community land banks and land trusts to allow the people in the community to help creating more affordable units. We know we all have to do that, but we also have to be very intentional about creating opportunities for people, especially people working and poor Black people, working class Black people in neighborhoods that have been ignored forever, to turn them from renters to homeowners in the neighborhoods. Looking like what's happening in Johnson Square, where they are taking people who are renters and making them homeowners in that neighborhood as it's revitalized. We know that we can do it, Shaka. You just need someone with the courage to lead and say, we are going to make this a priority, and creating those kind of home ownership and affordable housing opportunities will be a priority for me.
Cool, thanks. Shaka, if you don't mind, I'm gonna put you on the spot here and let you ask the other question you wanted to ask real quick. So I'm gonna unmute you here.
Sure. Cool. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Outstanding. Good evening. My name is Shaka Pitts. I'm the co-founder of Black People Ride Bikes, and we were created to promote the healthy lifestyle of biking to the Black diaspora. So currently, Baltimore City has a noticeable trend of ending safe bike lanes where they interact with communities of color. So African Americans deserve safe passage in their neighborhoods, just like everyone else, to the greenways and things of that nature. So what are your plans to ensure safe travel for all citizens of Baltimore, including the Black people who ride bikes?
Yeah, thank you for that, Shaka, and thank you for your leadership. Listen, it goes back to the initial question too, and again to the equity lens, right? We have to build those things. It can't just stop on Monument Street once you get to Johns Hopkins. The people who live in the other parts of East Baltimore, they deserve the same opportunity, right? But that's about two things. That's about leadership, courage, and the ability to properly communicate, right? When you have to have the relationships with the community to educate them on why it's important, right? Because you and I know, we had this issue in my own neighborhood, right? Where folks were in Northeast Baltimore, like, wow, Walther Avenue becoming one lane and having a bike lane and all these other things. We have to do the deep education too, but we will not, in my administration, be stopping bike lanes there. We will be doing it. We will be having those conversations in those communities, including with those people, some of our seniors, some of our community leaders who are a little hesitant, and helping them and educating them to explain to them why it's the best thing for their neighborhood, not just now, but doing something that mayors in the past in Baltimore, I haven't had a mayor in my lifetime think about the city past their election or past their term. We need a mayor who's thinking 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line so that they don't have to deal with the things that I have to deal with. I often say that my predecessors should have signed their checks with Spalding, because I now have them in my hand and they're bouncing because they didn't think about anything else. We have to do that now and have the tough conversations with communities and saying, we are doing this because this is the right thing now, but also the right thing to make your neighborhood better in the future, and you should be a part of it.
Thank you. Got another question from the chat here. When are you going to fill in the potholes on the big jump? How are emergency vehicles and disabled vehicles accommodated on that road? I'm a Penn North resident and I'm very concerned.
Yeah, thank you. This is something that we actually, the council complains about a lot, especially Councilman Pinkett, because I know he lives in that area. I will again pressure DOT to fill those potholes and to make sure that the big jump is being maintained and even cleaned properly. We know that there's been a lot of pushback about it, but I think that's an example of the bold kind of leadership and thought that we need in the city. So if that person, I can't see their name, if you could, though, so that I can directly follow up with you, send me an email, councilpresident@baltimorecity.gov, or call the office tomorrow, 410-396-4804, so that we can follow up direct and track it for you as well.
Great, thank you. Got a question about Loch Raven and sort of our trails here. So currently Baltimore City owns amazing recreational space in Loch Raven. There are some designated mountain bike trails, but there is so much more potential. Our organization is introducing Baltimore City youth to mountain biking and would love to get them out in the woods and do more trail maintenance and have the opportunity to have more miles of trails to ride that is nearby Baltimore City. This could provide Baltimore City youth to the alternative sport of biking.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing. And listen, I worked at Rec and Parks, so this is why Rec and Parks is always going to be my favorite agency, right? Because I know what Rec and Parks provided for me as a young kid who utilized CC Jackson, Tawanda, and JD Growth Rec Centers in Park Heights. That's where I first donned blue and gold, was actually at Tawanda Rec, but then also the experiences that they gave us in summer camps where we went out to Loch Raven, where we went to the nature center, where we learned those things. And what we have to do is invest more in the department. I was honored to last year lead the council in forcing the mayor to open rec centers on Saturdays by getting that added into the budget. But we have to do more, and we can't do more until we're investing in the agency. Stop treating it like a stepchild, understanding that an investment in that agency saves lives, creates careers, creates opportunities for young people to get out of their neighborhood and experience things that they will never experience elsewhere. So you can rest assured that that kind of stuff means a lot to me, and I will invest in it, and not just because I love to go biking on Saturdays and trail walking with my dog.
This brought out a bunch of Rec and Parks questions, so that's good. So the next one's from Greg. Rec and Parks seems to be the 90-pound weakling among the departments. Parks are degraded and trails are cut by DOT and DPW projects, and if there's any objection from Rec and Parks, it is ignored. Will you commit to hiring a director of Rec and Parks who will stand up to the other departments, and will you back them up when they do? And just sort of related to that, another person asked about, could you hire like a dedicated trail manager or other people to ensure maintenance on the trails occurs?
To the second one, absolutely. We should be doing that. And to the first question, Rec and Parks will not be a 90-pound weakling, right? They, like folks know, actually the truth is they know right now, if Rec and Parks comes to me with the issue, I'm going to go to the other agency head and say, you got to do this, because we know what it means, right? Not only will I make sure that our Rec and Parks director can speak up, and I actually think that the current one does speak up, but they will have the full weight of the mayor behind them, because we can't, again, continue to treat that agency like a stepchild or an orphan or something they want to throw away. It's an agency that has been underinvested in my entire life, and we have to create opportunities there and for them to grow. They are the park experts. They are the rec experts. That's what we should be listening to. The DPW, DOT, what do they know about parks and trails? They don't. Rec and Parks isn't telling them how to fix water bills, even though they might do the same amount of work as it right now, right? We need to have people who are experts in their agency, making sure that we have a team that cohesively works together.
Great, thanks. I've got one more Rec and Parks one. I'm going to go back to the video here. Do you have any thoughts on using the outdoor Bill of Rights to help with violence reduction? And that's also from Laurel.
You broke up on my end, Jay. Can you say it again? It's okay.
Do you have any thoughts on using the outdoor Bill of Rights to help with violence reduction?
Oh, yes. And this is something, please, and I think that's from Laurel. Laurel, can you send me an email to the other side, to Brandon at brandonforbaltimore.com, because this is something we've been talking about, and I would love to talk to you more about it by creating more violence reduction from the use of outdoor space and from the use of outdoor activities. So please, yes, email me about that. Yeah, there's a bunch of questions in the chat now, Jade. I can see them.
Oh yeah, it's heating up. I'm gonna selfishly go over to my partner Wynn here, who's downstairs and has had her hand raised for a while. So I'm gonna let her ask her question really quick. Wynn, you are unmuted.
Okay. Hi, Brandon.
How are you? Now I found it.
I'm doing well. So I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner. I work as a pediatrician up in Hamden. And I am now biking to work, which has been really nice. But my question is about bus transportation. So the majority of my patients, their families rely on the bus to get to their appointments, and that can be difficult sometimes with our bus system being rather unreliable. And it's gotten more difficult since the restrictions with COVID-19. I've had several parents tell me that they are nervous about taking their children on the bus because the reduction in the amount of buses means that there are more people crowded into the buses, and they really don't feel safe with that, understandably. But that does mean that there are children and babies that parents aren't bringing into the office for their needed vaccines. So I guess my question is two-part. One, is there anything in the short term that you think can be done to address the crowding on the buses? And two, in the long term, do you have any plans for improving our bus infrastructure and making it more reliable and a better option for people getting around the city?
So I'll start with the first one first, right? So this is something that I've been talking about since COVID, and actually being someone that works alongside the union that represents the bus drivers is something that they were concerned about too, that the reduction was putting their workers at risk. And we're going to continue to press upon the state to try to create more opportunity for that not to happen. And we know what needs to be done, right? And especially now with things that are going to be relaxed, which I actually absolutely right now think that we should be following public health advice, and I'm not sure that we should be doing that. But if we're going to be doing that, then they have to go back to increasing service and not making sure that people don't have to catch the bus like that, because you can't preach to everyone, practice physical distancing, and make sure that you're honoring the heroes who are on the front lines. And then those very people, you're forcing them to not do that because you're forcing them to be on the bus in situations that don't allow for that, right? You have to practice what you preach. And then we know for the long term what has to be done in Baltimore. In addition to building the better infrastructure through complete streets and making sure that we have the access and we have synchronized lights and we have bus lanes and all the great work that we all know we have to do, there is something else that's important when you're a mayor and a true leader. You also are a convener. What the next mayor has to do is work with our regional partners, convene the executives, Howard, Anne Arundel, Baltimore, and dare I say Hartford, to go and support the efforts to make MTA a regional agency, because no one person should be able to walk away from $1 billion of investment simply because the jurisdiction didn't vote for them. When I go to Philadelphia, it says SEPTA. It doesn't say Pennsylvania Transit Authority, right? It's a regional thing. When you go to DC, we know it's Metro and WMATA. When you go to San Francisco and Oakland, it's BART. We can build a 21st century transit in our city, in our region, if we actually had a 21st century structure. That's what we have to do. But in the meantime, what we also can do is we can do some things differently here, right? When you think about the circulator, something that I had a hot, cold relationship with, to say the least. It isn't that I don't think people should get free buses. I think that should be the case for everyone over time, right? But why is it that people who live on Pennsylvania Avenue, who live in Park Heights, where I grew up, they can't get on the bus for free and they can't afford it? We can and should be doing that. We should be operating what I call equity circulators, coming down those kind of roads and then doing some other tough work, because we know what I hear from people. Business people say, well, I hire these people from the city. If I'm a person that is in the industrial area in Canton or along Pulaski Highway or in South Baltimore, even out at Train Point, they say, well, they got to catch the bus to get here. And the bus system's so unreliable that, you know, they'll be on time or early for a week and then they'll be late for 3 weeks straight because it wasn't their fault, it was the bus. And I had to get rid of them because I have to run a business here. We can operate what I call job circulators, where we're going to places like Mondawmin, where pretty much everyone can get to, and taking buses out to those job centers and getting people there from our neighborhoods while we're doing the tough work of building a better system in the long term. And hold on, also, let me thank you for your great work and for being a hero, not just now doing COVID, but from all the time. So thank you for your service. My pediatrician, Dr. Reynolds, is one of my fondest memories as a child, because I had a lot of health challenges as a child, and she was very soothing for me. So I know what it means for young people.
Well, thank you. I'm going to frame this question with a little, just for the audience. In Baltimore City, about 800 people die early every year from emissions-related diseases. And the number one reason kids miss school in the city is asthma, and the number two reason is transportation. So this question is from Ari Goldstein, who is a medical student. And they say, I have seen so many children who suffer from asthma. We know that the way our transportation network is set up creates pollution that disproportionately hurts children in poorer neighborhoods. What can we do to mitigate the vast harm done? And how do you think we can change how poorer neighborhoods' proximity to busy thoroughways affects their health?
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's again about reimagining ourselves, right? Reimagining that poor Black neighborhoods aren't just a place where people who live in the county, other people can drive through and get there and just poison. That people who live in South Baltimore don't just have to, because they're poor and Black or poor and white in that case, have to take in the emissions from the incinerator that we want to get rid of, right? It's about reimagining our city from top to bottom. Understanding that we have to build transit in those communities, building our streets and our infrastructure to make it so that it is based for those people that live there, not people who are going to travel through those neighborhoods. Like, so I grew up on the 2500 block of Cold Spring at 2551 West Cold Spring Land. And I was telling someone last week who I was like, I don't remember people knocking on my front door, and they're like, why? I was like, have you ever been to the 2500 block of Cold Spring? Like, you're playing with your life if you go in the front. We didn't play in the front yard because people are speeding down the street, because the way it's made, it isn't made for people to live there. It's made for people to get down to 83 and get wherever they need to go. That's how we do it. We have to reimagine the way that our city is built from top to bottom and how we operate. And then when you talk about asthma and you talk about emissions, you also have to talk about how we deal with our waste, how we can create jobs and opportunity from going to more green jobs and zero waste, how we can reuse things, how we can build things in by teaching composting. That's how we have to imagine a new 21st century Baltimore for everybody.
Awesome. This next one's from Nia, a co-founder of Black People Ride Bikes. Do you have a plan for adding more bike grids or racks specifically in minority or Black communities? These communities are also riding bikes and deserve safe options and places to park their bikes, as many of these individuals need places to park as they shop or go to work.
Absolutely, Nia. That's a simple one. Yes. And what we will always do is work with those on the ground like you to say, okay, where are the riders? Where should we go? Where should we make these investments? Because again, through my equity assessment program, I'm going to ensure that our capital and our operating dollars are spent through a lens of equity, and we're making those investments into those neighborhoods who have been ignored, not by happenstance, but on purpose for generations.
Awesome. Got another hand raised here from Andrew. So Andrew, I'm gonna unmute you here.
Andrew.
Hey, Council Presidents.
Oh, hey, there he is.
Hey, I'm right here. Thanks for doing this. I had a question that kind of came up as you talked about wrecking parks, and this is actually in relation to DOT. What's your assessment of the management of DOT, you know, not just the top people, but also middle management, the people who make the decisions on the ground about all these transportation decisions that seem mercurial from an outsider's perspective? Like, what would you actually do to streamline that department, you know, bring it into the 21st century? Because it doesn't feel like it's there to me.
Yeah, I think that actually I have to give credit where credit is due. I think that the current leadership in DOT is light years better than what we had in the years before, right? I won't even go into that disaster. But what I will often always say, that I always think, and being someone that was a middle level worker in city government at one point, I know that there are great, smart, capable people at that level who have not had the support at the higher level as well, right? They need to see on top. There are great workers in our agencies who have the greatest ideas, who think in the 21st century, but they need to have the leadership on the top that says, one, it's okay to do things differently. It's okay to not say, okay, well, we did this for the last 20 years, but now we're going to do something different. They need a leader that says that's okay. Then what we're going to do is, again, when we're searching for these agency heads and these people, that's one of the basic requirements. I don't want to hear people who are coming to me with an outdated kind of mindset. I want you to think about how you're going to improve these outdated and broken systems that we have. But also, it's also important for me to say that when you have a city transportation department that has had like the vacant positions for engineers that we have, of course they're outdated. We have to also invest in them as well.
Great. I think we have, it looks like we have like 3 more questions. We probably should cap it at that. This next one says, the next municipal budget is going to be brutal. What parts of the transportation agenda outlined here do you think you can move forward, and what in all candor might have to take a back seat while we dig out?
Yeah, thank you for that, Chris. I think that the truth is that when I get the full budget detail, I'll give you a full thing of that. We've only gotten the preliminary. We haven't gotten the agency detail to see what they're planning to cut. We do know some of the cuts that they're planning to make to other agencies. Some of the things that I don't agree with, but what you can be rest assured for me is that I'm going to comb through that budget top to bottom. I'm going to look at things that I think maybe we should send to other places. Like I've already said for years, I know Jada will remember this, and Liz, I've been saying that, hey, we spend about $1 million a year on this unit in the police department for them to have horses. I think there's time for that to end, right? And now what they're doing in the proposal of this budget is actually moving those officers back to patrol that ride their horses, but keeping the horses. And I'm like, well, to me, that makes no sense. That $500,000 can be spent in another area of the city, in another service that we can directly have the impact without putting our public safety at risk. There are many things that we are going to have to look at with this tough budget. I'm going to make sure first and foremost that we are not shaking our responsibility to be a forward-thinking, a forward-moving city, but also that we're not cutting service, critical service, especially to the neighborhoods that need it the most. We know what they did in 2008 with the last recession. The first thing they did, and this is not something that they proposed, that this mayor proposed, but the mayor at the time in 2008, what did they do? They closed the Powell and the rec centers, right? That's not what we need to do right now. We need to make sure that we are moving forward with those things and doing the tough work of figuring out how we can reimagine the city's budget in the first place.
Great, thanks. Brian, I'm going to unmute you if you want to ask your question.
Hi, thank you. So in the past several years, we've had a number of bike trails that have been built around the city, and 3, if not 4, if not more of them have had major revisions after the fact, after they were installed. So there's funding money that's put out on the front side to take care of these things, and budgets put together and grant money granted and this kind of thing. When the revisions are done after the fact, it's not only disruptive, but my understanding is that any changes made after the fact come out of the city budget. So there's been a problem with outreach to various people because, I've done some door knocking and I know that people don't always respond or want to talk about things, but when something's coming to their block, then they get outraged and they pitch a fit, even if they had the opportunity initially. So how can we improve the outreach so that we're not having a wag the dog situation and spending money, good money after bad to fix things and change things?
Thank you. And first, Brian, thank you as always. Thank you for your leadership. And I know how hard you worked in Highlandtown. I think that we have to actually really invest more in community outreach. I think that there are things and capabilities that we have as a city now that we're not using, right? When we think about the Gov Delivery program that I champion, and actually when I was a staffer helped to start to create, there are further technology capabilities that it has that allows us to geocode conversations with neighborhoods around projects, and under my leadership, the agencies will fully use them. So that we're meeting people where they are, right? The city itself, right? We if we're smart about it and we're printing money for all these flyers and all these other things, what we also could be doing is, again, geocoding on Facebook and on Instagram. We're doing announcements that are going out to those specific areas, or putting an address in and saying, hey, around this half mile, making sure that those people are seeing it. In addition to doing the traditional things of sending notifications and knocking on doors and communicating with community organizations, it's the 21st century. We have to meet people where they are and find them when they don't want to be found, so that we can not have many as the experiences that you had and I've had, even in my own neighborhood, where people say, well, I didn't know that you guys were going to be renovating or putting this path in along Parkside Drive. Like, that's what we have to do. Communicate with people in every way that we can.
Cool. What is your dream project for the city?
Oh, this is my dream project. Oh man. I know this is the Bikemore one, but you guys know I'm an athlete at heart. My dream project is something that I've been trying to get the city to do for a long time. We have some of the best youth sports programs and teams that this country has, right? I'm an alum of the Baltimore City track and field club that has produced Olympians and world champions and hundreds of college graduates and football players, including young Fuller, who had the interception that ended the Super Bowl this year. But guess what? We are one of the few places that don't have a city-owned, Rec and Parks ran sports complex, right? Why is it that our AAU teams, our AAU and USA track and field teams, our football teams, which are the best in the state, why do we have to go to the county or Prince George's or all these other places to host meets and competitions? We should have that here. My dream project, Jed, is to actually build that kind of center where we can host these events for our young people and our community can be a part of it. And we can also use that to recreate and employ people in our neighborhoods. That's my dream project.
I love it. I think this is an important question to get in. So if you don't mind, I'm going to try to sneak it in here, even though we're running out of time.
Yep. Before Facebook cuts us off.
Yeah. Are any plans being made to bring Baltimore dirt bike culture into the mainstream and decriminalize? It's a huge part of city culture and is made up of primarily young men who are already targeted and profiled by the police. I'd like to see them given some spaces to ride without risking arrest or endangering pedestrians.
Yeah, so this is actually something that that I'm telling you guys a secret that I've actually done, right? And now since he's not here anymore, we can't get in trouble. So when we had 300 Men March operating, we decided, Mania and I decided one night that we were going to try to work to see if we could have peaceful dirt bike things done in East Baltimore. So I called up my good friend, then Major Melvin Russell, and said, Melvin, I have an idea. And we all know Major Colonel Russell loved to do community-based things. And he said, all right, this is what I'm gonna do. We're gonna go to an area and we're gonna block off the streets for you guys. As long as y'all can keep everything peaceful, it'll be fine. And we literally had the Baltimore Police Department actually blocking off a street in East Baltimore. I think it was Madison Avenue in East Baltimore for 2 hours while we had dirt bikes riding. And guess what? Nothing happened. No one got in trouble. And when it was over, we got the bikes, put them on a truck, and they were gone. We can create this opportunity. And shout out to B360 that is in Park Heights, right up the street from my grandmother's house, who are using this as a chance to educate our young people. We have to deal with that. Understand all these folks who, and listen, I grew up with the original 12 o'clock boys in Park Heights. I don't like dirt bikes, right? It's not my thing, but people love them, right? Like it's just as much a part of Baltimore as crab cakes. It's not going anywhere, right? Crab cakes, club music, and dirt bikes. That's Baltimore's culture. We have to figure out how we can turn this into something that our young people can do positively and safely, and also learn and educate themselves.
Awesome. I'm going to use this last question to transition it to closing, basically, for you and Liz to sort of close this out. And the question is, how's the campaign going?
Oh yes, that listen, the campaign is going great. People are excited about a new way forward for Baltimore City. They're excited about someone who can build a coalition, who has support white, black, young, old, rich, poor, gay, straight, and that understands Baltimore inside and out. I'm not a newcomer. I didn't just show up here. I didn't just show up for the election. I put my time in the community. It's not about Brandon Scott being a council person or the council president. It's about Brandon Scott, the man who's shown that he will be there for our young people. He will coach. He will do things that have nothing to do with his elected office to make his city better, but who also understands the need for bold policy and structure change. That's what this election is about. If we want a better Baltimore for everyone, where everyone can come together, who with a leader that will grow alongside with you as we grow together in the city, then I'm your mayor and I'm the person that you should mail in that ballot for when you receive it in the mail.
All right. I don't know about you all, but I am leaving this really inspired. Thank you, Brandon, for your time and just your thoughtfulness. I really appreciate you. So my last question is, how can we support your campaign?
Oh, this is great. So first and foremost, again, when you get that mail-in ballot, hit Brandon Scott, hit, I see Philip Westry, hit Philip Westry, hit Shannon Sneed, sign the back of that, envelope, send it in. Don't bunch them in more one in one envelope. Send it back independently. That's the first and most important thing that you can do. Invite, we would love to have you have one of these. I love talking to people, even if it's on Zoom, even if my eyes hurt from staring at a computer screen for hours on end. If you're interested in doing that, we would love to have you. Send us an email, Brandon for Baltimore. We would love to have you, right? Also, again, volunteering, making phone calls for us, sending text messages for us. Please reach out to us, Brandon for Baltimore. That's the way that we're going to win this election, by being a convener and being a builder of a coalition that wants a new way forward for Baltimore.
All right. You can use your reactions and give Brandon a virtual round of applause. Thank you again for your time. And yeah, for those that attended, we do have options for you to sign up to volunteer through the Bikemore website as well. And we will keep championing your campaign, Brandon. We are so excited to support you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, and please let us know if there's anything I can do to serve you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.